how much gold does one need to maintain a basic lifestyle? So let's think about retirement. Hello, Gold Silver family. Alan Hibbert here with another video, and I wanted to take the time to go through some of your questions and comments from the comment section of our recent videos. So I went through and gathered a handful of them, and they were actually inspired by this first comment here. Love this format of individually addressing relevant and interesting comments from viewers. Keep it up. So QA2875, this video is for you. All right, first one here. I think it was important to cover this scenario, talking here about the statutory revaluation of gold, potentially to $20,000 an ounce. Okay, I think it was important to cover this scenario because most gold promoter types misconstrue it as a 10x gain in purchasing power. A 10x gain can happen, but by market forces, not government decree. So that was exactly the point that I was trying to make in those two videos. Absolutely a 10x gain in purchasing power can happen, much more than that, 20, 25. I mean, the sky's the limit, but it's not by government decree, it's by market forces. So yeah, government decree, any given government can only decree essentially the value of its own currency or promises to pay currency, bonds, and it can really only sort of declare it to be weaker than it is. It can't really just declare it to be stronger. That strength has to be earned, whereas the weakness can just be confessed, if you will. So maybe one analogy that might be helpful is if you think of a baseball player who doesn't hit any home runs all season and then says, you know what, I deserve to have 40 home runs in my stats. Well, you can't just claim to have strength that you didn't exhibit. Okay. But if you think about it the other way, what if that player actually hit 40 home runs throughout the year? And then at the end of the season, they said, you know what? It was all a fraud. I cheated. I took performance enhancing drugs. I corked my bat. I did all these things that are illegal. I didn't actually earn it. So take them off the books. It can work that way. It just can't work the other way. So this is really a one-way street where a government can devalue its own currency. It can't really do anything to something it doesn't control, like gold. So this comment sums it up nicely. Moving right along here, the 1934 Gold Reserve Act subsequently changed the statutory gold content of the US dollar from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. They devalued gold upward by approximately 75%. Gold holders won big. Your thesis is wrong. So again, still talking about that statutory price increase. And I'll get to these replies in just a second. So okay, let's see here. There's a lot to pick apart. So overlooking some basic kind of typos here. Gold holders won big. I agree for sure. We agree on that. Price of gold, statutory price moved from 20.67 to 35 an ounce. We agree on that. As I understand it, and it's really hard to find data on this, as I understand it, the 1934 Gold Reserve Act allowed President Roosevelt to devalue the dollar by as much as 50%. So that would move the price of gold from $20.67 to as much as $40. He didn't go that far. Okay. And part of the reason for that, as I understand it, and again, really hard to get data on this, is that this wasn't an overnight revaluation. This process took about a month. It took several weeks. And I believe each day, the price of gold was allowed to freely trade. And then at the end of each day, they would repeg it to the new value. So price of gold went up and then they repegged it at 35. And I believe the free market chose that number 35 because that was enough for the Federal Reserve to back the dollars with gold at that 40% backing that it was supposed to have. I believe. So I tried to confirm this online. I've tried it many times over the past few years. It is super hard to find reliable data about this. I found a few articles, but they're not very convincing. And I talked to Mike Maloney about this for the third or fourth time again this morning. And he remembers reading something like that in a book, gosh, almost 20 years ago now. He can't remember which book it was. It's hard for us to find it. So we're not 100% sure, but it sounds like this was the free market revaluing gold that the president was allowed to do, even though it wasn't an effective change in the statutory price from the beginning to the end of the revaluation period. So I don't know if my thesis is necessarily wrong. I think hopefully that's helpful. But anyways, let's look at these replies here. Yeah, between being the largest holder of Bitcoin and gold, they could hedge dollar debt against it. I actually don't know what this comment is trying to say. I don't know if they refers to the same they in the original comment here, which is basically the US government. But I don't think the US government is the largest holder of Bitcoin and gold, unless you know something I don't. So I'm not really sure what this comment means. But if you're holding real money, I would say gold, silver, and Bitcoin are among them. You're effectively hedging yourself against any type of fiat revaluation, whether it's your own government or any other one. You're basically protected against that because no government can just say that gold is worth less than it is, or silver or Bitcoin for that matter. Yes, Rafi Farber explained his mistake. So a few people mentioned that Rafi commented on my video. I went to his channel to watch his video and I couldn't find which one it was. So he releases a lot of videos and I couldn't tell by the title or thumbnail which one it was. And I wasn't going to watch them all. So if someone wants to post the title of that video in the comments below this video, I will go watch that. So I'm not really sure what Rafi says. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page here. I think. I mean, I'll see what Rafi says. But yeah. So anyways, it goes back to this comment here. A 10x gain can happen, but by market forces, not government decree. That's kind of how I would summarize it. Last comment here. Excuse my curiosity, but devalued down upward. Okay, so just focusing on the language here. The important thing to emphasize here is you can devalue the dollar, right? But you can't by decree, move the direction of gold. That's what the free market is going to do. So yeah, so in a statutory revaluation, whether it's in 1934 or 2024 or some other year, yes, enormous gains in purchasing power can happen, but it's in that gap between an official policy and people reacting to the policy, or people's anticipation of the policy and the actual implementation of the policy. So I think there are tremendous gains to be made. It's just not with the stroke of a pen. Moving right along. Excellent job, Alan. It would be useful to follow this up with a discussion of how the government could try and thwart a gold holder's ability to convert to fiat after the revaluation. Things like regulations on gold dealers, coin stores getting debanked, windfall taxes, etc. Well, entanglement entropy, awesome name, by the way. It sounds like you're already thinking about this. So yeah, of course, there could be regulations on gold dealers. I mean, obviously, gold dealers are already regulated and those regulations change over time. They could become stricter, of course. There could be requirements to collect everybody's information on every type of sale, to monitor even more things, to increase the regulatory burden. That could happen. Obviously, there's precedent for that. That's sort of the normal trend, is to be more and more strict. So that trend could continue. Coin stores getting debanked. That could happen. I mean, we've seen different industries be debanked. I believe the cannabis industry, when there's a discrepancy between state law and federal law, a lot of banks won't, or they wouldn't have, or they didn't bank those cannabis companies. I'm not really sure the status of them right now, but yeah, that happens. We saw it with crypto. A lot of different crypto exchanges and other crypto companies had trouble interacting with the fiat system because of regulatory uncertainty. So of course that could happen with gold and silver. Of course it could, right? There's precedent for all this. Windfall taxes. I'm not aware of any windfall taxes in the United States other than on crude oil in the 1980s. And that was an excise tax, not really a tax on profits. But that could happen. It happens in other countries. It certainly could happen in the United States, where they say, if you sell gold or silver, you got to pay 90% capital gains on that investment. That could happen. So yeah, I don't want to go too far in depth on this because I don't really know. I don't have any information on this. I don't, talk to any members of Congress or anything like that. So it would just be speculation on my part. But yeah, I like that you're thinking about these things. And that's also why in my opinion, it's good to have a variety of types of money. For example, not just gold. You wouldn't want that to be your only thing. That's why I hold gold, silver, and Bitcoin. It gives me different options. And in case I can't convert to fiat, I could potentially just spend those forms of money directly. Now, gold obviously carries a lot of purchasing power in a small space, and it's very hard to make change. So if you're not going to buy something for $2,500, it's hard to get change back. That's why you'd want something like silver or perhaps Bitcoin. If there's a problem with the internet or just technology in general, the Bitcoin is sort of out. You got to rely on the physical, gold and silver. So that's why I think it makes sense to have a wide variety of types of money. Because yeah, there could be all kinds of barriers to interacting with the fiat system in the future. El Gallo, or El Gallo, perhaps?
Hi, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you for subscribing and mention that if you'd like to help our channel, please consider my company, GoldSilver.com, the next time you buy precious metals. We're one of the most trusted names in the industry. Our prices are sharp, delivery is fast, and we have an insiders program where you find out exactly what I'm doing with my own investments. Thanks for making GoldSilver.com your dealer, and now back to the video.
We want to be as leveraged as possible so that when the dollar implodes against gold, we pay off our debt with devalued dollars. I mean, yes and no, but no. So, I mean, in a technical sense, yes, like this is the incentive, right? But human beings are not spreadsheets. Human beings have emotions. And this is something I failed to consider in my youth. So in my early 20s, I basically did this. I levered up probably more than I should have. I mean, the circumstances are kind of special. I'm not going to go into all those details, but I ended up maxing out credit cards. I took out personal loans. I purposely chose not to pay off my student loans. And basically, I used all those dollars to buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin for this exact reason, thinking, okay, when I eventually do pay off those debts, it will be with devalued dollars. And conceptually, that is true. But practically speaking, when you're a human being saddled in debt, it weighs on you. It weighs on you. And the emotions are not captured in the equations. So that's all I'll say is you really got to think about this. Your life isn't just a spreadsheet. There's more factors to consider. But otherwise, in principle, you're right. It's just not the only principle to implement here. How much gold does one need if this happens to maintain a basic lifestyle? Well, I'm not going to talk about any particular scenario. You can maybe take what I'm about to say and, relate it to any scenario that you want to think about. But let's just say, how much gold does one need to maintain a basic lifestyle? So let's think about retirement. There's kind of two camps. I mean, there's way more than two camps. There's way more than two ways to think about this, but there's two ways I like to think about it. The first is through a conventional lens of portfolio theory, where you might pick a certain percentage of your portfolio to be gold or silver or a combination of the two. Maybe you pick 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever the percentage is. Maybe you choose that based on volatility. Maybe you run some back tests. Maybe you do some projections. You probably come up with something that's diversified. You measure overall volatility. You can do it that way. That's one way. I don't think that directly answers your question here, Rose. The other way that I sometimes think about it, I think is more to your question, which is how much gold do you need, gold and silver? I like to think about gold, 1 ounce of gold, as being able to cover my housing and my energy and probably clothing for a month. That's a pretty conservative estimate. But if you say gold is, let's say, $2,400 an ounce, I believe I could afford housing, shelter, utilities, and clothing for a month with $2,400. And if the price of gold goes up, the price of housing goes up, and energy and so forth. So I think of it as 1 ounce of gold per month. And then when it comes to food and water, essentially, I think of it as 1 ounce of silver a day. That's how I think about it. So to survive 1 month, 1 ounce of gold and 30 ounces of silver. And then take that out as many months as you want. So if you want to ask yourself, hey, at what point can I retire? Well, think about your life expectancy. How many months is that? With my method, that's how many ounces of gold you need. And you need 30 times that's how many ounces of silver. And that's a basic lifestyle. That's a basic lifestyle. And I think those are pretty conservative estimates. But yeah, it's just, that's a starting point. You can revise that for whatever you think will work for you. Obviously, it depends if you have kids or dependents and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, another question here. Asians and Orientals tend to give gold as gifts and hoard it in some fashion, while Westerners tend to save currency. In the event of an economic collapse, presumably those areas with Asians and Orientals would become the richest areas in towns and presumably the world. What would this look like, do you think? Asians and Orientals have shops. What would happen to them? Would Asians and Orientals buy up all the houses other people could no longer afford, or would their mindset not be to do this? How would it change the dynamics of towns and the world, in your opinion? Okay, so I like this question, and I'm not really going to answer it from the perspective of Asians and Orientals, but I will address it from the perspective of when there is a wealth transfer from one group to another group, what happens? And this is something I've been thinking about a lot. And I believe that at the conclusion, let's say, of the precious metals bull market, whenever that may be, and when there is a massive wealth transfer, several things will happen. And the first is when there's a new class of rich, the values that those people have start to propagate throughout society. And the reason I say that is quite simple. It's really because the monetary system is the soil in which the seeds of society are planted. Okay, I think Mike said something like that in his first book. If not, he should have. No. But yeah, so a society's store of value, right? A society's system of value becomes the value system. So on a fiat system, how is fiat created? Well, it's promised into existence, which is effectively a lie. It's a lie because you're representing that you've done work. You can spend fictitious currency that's created out of thin air just the same as other people who have earned it can spend it. It's the same, it's indistinguishable. So whether or not you worked for the currency you have, you can spend it as if you worked for it. So at the very basic level, at the very beginning of the monetary system, we have lying. It's also cheating because you're not doing the work to create it, whereas other people are. And it's stealing. It's lying, it's cheating, it's stealing because you're stealing their purchasing power. And those are the values at the heart of the monetary system on a fiat system. And so we get lying, cheating, and stealing that propagate throughout the economy. And people who don't study this or think it through, they blame the lying, cheating, and stealing on greed or capitalism or this political party or that political party, but it's the monetary system. It's the monetary system that is the cause of those values propagating through society. If, however, we have a shift from a fiat-powered economy to a sound money-powered economy, whether it's gold, silver, Bitcoin, or a combination, that's honest money. Why is it honest money? Because no one can create those things out of thin air. They all have to be worked into existence, and you have to work to create them just as the same you have to work to earn them from someone else. So whether you're creating a new unit or you're earning an existing unit from somebody else, you have to do the work. So it's equal, it's fair, it's an honest system. And so in this scenario here, when we ask about, gold holders all of the sudden having a windfall, having an increase in purchasing power, what happens in the world? All of the sudden, we get values like honesty and integrity spreading throughout society, where you have to be honest in order to get rich. On the fiat system, unfortunately, you do not have to be honest to get rich. You can lie, you can cheat, you can steal, and you can become friends with whoever has the printing press. And that's a lot more efficient. It's a lot better use of your time and energy. And that's really the moral hazard in a fiat system. So I am very optimistic that we will transition to a sound money standard little by little. And this is why I'm so passionate about educating the world. So thank you, guys. I want to end with a meme. It comes from Clark Griswold and Rusty. Dad, why does government ruin everything it touches? It's a bit presumptive, but okay. Well, Russ, people can't seem to figure out that government is a monopoly that has no incentive to be efficient, effective, accountable, or to improve because it's funded by taxes we pay involuntarily. And if we don't, well, they put us in prison. So that's it, folks. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.